He's my mate. Alien warrior woman shielded human man after he revealed their leaders. Crime, the great chamber of the galactic conclave, was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling curved so high that clouds drifted beneath it, held in place by ancient gravity systems. Pillars of black crystal rose from the floor like frozen lightning. Every seat was carved for giants, warriors, rulers, and beings who had shaped stars long before humanity learned how to leave its home system. Humans were new here, too new. Elias Ward stood near the back with the other human delegates, his hands folded behind him, his face calm in a way only years of controlled fear could produce. He was not a soldier. He was not a politician. He was a systems analyst, someone who read numbers, patterns, and records until they told a story others missed. Today, the story was screaming. The conclave was in session to celebrate peace. That was the official reason. Speeches echoed across the chamber as representatives praised stability, order, and the guiding hand of the dominant species, the Carthel Dominion. The Carthel were warriors. Tall, armored by natural plating, their eyes glowed like molten metal. Their leaders sat on a raised platform, surrounded by honor guards carrying weapons older than Earth's oldest nations. Everyone feared them. Everyone obeyed them. Elias had spent the last 3 months reviewing archived communication logs shared between conclave members. It was dull work, safe work, exactly the kind of work humans were allowed to do, until it was. Patterns had appeared small at first, missing timestamps, reused encryption keys, fleet movements that never matched official reports. Then casualty numbers that changed depending on who asked. At first, Elias assumed error, then incompetence, then coincidence. Then he found the war that never should have happened, a border conflict blamed on a minor trade dispute. An entire species wiped out in less than a cycle. Officially, it was unfortunate but unavoidable. Unofficially, it was engineered. The deeper Elias dug, the clearer it became. The Carthel leadership had manipulated events, forged evidence, and provoked wars to eliminate rivals and expand control, all while presenting themselves as the galaxy's protectors. It was crime on a scale humanity barely had words for, and Elias now carried proof. As another Carthel elder spoke about honor, Elias felt his pulse pound in his ears. He knew the rules. He knew the cost. Accusing a ruling caste without permission meant execution, not imprisonment, not exile, death, immediate, public. The human delegation had warned him to stay silent, to send the data quietly, to wait, but Elias had checked the private channels. They were monitored, altered, erased. There would be no quiet justice. He exhaled slowly. Then he stepped forward. The movement was small, but in the vast chamber it was enough. Several heads turned. A few guards shifted their grip on weapons. A human speaking out of turn was unusual. A human approaching the central platform was unheard of. Elias activated his wrist console. "Honored members of the conclave," he said, his voice steady, amplified by the chamber systems. "I request recognition." Laughter rippled through the upper tiers, some amused, some irritated. A Carthel elder turned his burning gaze toward Elias. "You are unrecognized." "Sit down, human," Elias swallowed. "I cannot," a sharp hiss echoed. Guards began to move. "I possess verified records," Elias continued, proving that the Carthel High Command fabricated multiple conflicts, falsified casualty reports, and deliberately destroyed entire civilizations for political control. The chamber exploded into sound, shouts, roars. The pounding of armored fists against stone. The human delegates froze in horror. The Carthel elder rose slowly. "You accuse the Dominion of treason against the galaxy." "I accuse your leaders of mass murder," Elias said. The elder's eyes burned brighter. "Then you choose death." Execution guards surged forward, weapons humming with lethal energy. The nearest raised his blade. Time seemed to slow. Elias felt fear then, real fear. cold and heavy, but beneath it was something stronger, relief. The truth was out. The blade began to fall. Something slammed into the space between Elias and the guards with the force of a meteor. A towering figure landed, armored boots cracking the stone floor. The guards staggered back as if struck by a shockwave. She was Carthel, but different, taller, broader. Her armor was scarred and dark, marked by 100 battles. Her crest bore the sigil of a war leader, not a politician. Her eyes were sharp, focused, and furious, not with Elias but with the guards. She spread her arms wide, placing herself fully in front of him. "Stand down," she commanded. The execution guards hesitated. No one ordered them like that, not without authority. The elder snarled, "General Kareth, you overstep." Eth did not turn. Her gaze never left the guards. "Lower your weapons." Slowly, unwillingly, they obeyed. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Then Kareth spoke words that shook the conclave to its core. "He is my mate," she said. "Any who strike him strike me." Shock rippled outward like a physical force. Elias stared at her back, his mind reeling. Mate. He didn't even know her name before this moment. The Carthel elders erupted in angry voices. "Impossible. Lies. You disgrace your rank." Kareth finally turned to face them. "By our oldest law, a declared bond grants protection beyond political command. You will not touch him." The elder's claws dug into the stone of his podium. "You would shield a liar, a weak outsider." Eth's eyes narrowed. "I would shield truth." The elder pointed at Elias. "He has committed the highest crime. Execution is mandatory." "Then execute me first," Kareth replied. The words echoed. No one moved. Everyone in the chamber knew what she had done. She had bound her life, her honor, and her future to a human accused of treason. If Elias was guilty, she would fall with him. Elias finally found his voice. "General, I didn't—" "Silence," Kareth said softly without looking back. "You have done enough." The elder's voice dropped, cold and dangerous. "This matter will not end here." Eth inclined her head slightly. "It never does." The conclave recessed shortly after, the celebration of peace forgotten. Guards escorted Elias and Kareth from the chamber, not as prisoners, but not as guests either. As they walked through the long corridors of black crystal, Elias struggled to keep up with her long stride. "Why?" he asked quietly. Kareth slowed but did not stop. "Because you spoke when silence was safer. That's not enough reason to risk everything." She glanced down at him then. Her eyes were intense, searching. "Among my people, courage is not measured by strength. It is measured by what you stand against when you know you will lose." Elias looked away. "I don't even know what being your mate means." "It means," she said, "that they cannot kill you without tearing themselves apart." That did not comfort him. As the doors closed behind them, Elias realized something important. The truth had survived its first strike, but the war for it had just begun. The corridors beyond the conclave chamber were quiet, but the silence was not peaceful. It felt watched, heavy, like the air before a storm. Elias walked beside General Kareth, his thoughts racing faster than his steps. Every sound echoed too loudly. Every shadow felt dangerous. They were taken to a guarded residence reserved for high-ranking Carthel officials. The guards did not speak. They did not look at Elias, but their hands never left their weapons. Inside, the doors sealed with a deep metallic sound. Only then did Kareth finally stop. Elias released a breath he had not realized he was holding. "They're going to come for us," he said quietly. Kareth removed her helmet and set it aside. Without it she looked older, not weak, never weak, but tired. "Yes," she said, "they will." "Then why protect me?" Elias asked again. "You could have stayed silent. You could have let them kill me." Eth turned to face him fully. "Because if I did, everything my people claim to be would become a lie." She activated a console in the room. A shield shimmered into place, blocking outside signals. "You spoke truth in a place built on fear," she continued. "That makes you dangerous to them." "I didn't plan to survive," Elias admitted. "I just didn't want the truth to disappear." Eth studied him for a long moment. That is why you are still alive." News spread fast through the station, faster than the elders expected. Human systems across the delegation lit up as Elia's backup files activated automatically. He had prepared for death. The moment his heart rate spiked beyond a certain level, encrypted data packets were released to human networks, and from there to any system that would listen. Independent analysts across the galaxy began to review the evidence, at first quietly, then openly. Questions appeared, then demands. The Carthel elders responded the only way they knew how. They declared Elias a manipulator, a human spy. They accused him of fabricating data to weaken galactic order. They demanded his immediate transfer into Dominion custody. Kareth refused. She invoked the trial of truth, an ancient Carthel rite that predated the Dominion itself. A trial meant not for outsiders, but for warriors accused of betraying their code. The elders could not reject it without exposing their own fear. The trial chamber was smaller than the conclave but heavier with meaning. Stone walls were carved with records of past judgments, heroes honored, traitors erased. Kareth stood at the center. Elias stood beside her, unarmed, surrounded by watchers. The eldest of the High Command spoke. "If this human's words are proven false, you will share his punishment." "I know," Kareth replied. Elias felt the weight of that settle in his chest. This was no gesture. This was sacrifice. The trial began. Evidence filled the air as holograms, fleet paths, command orders, falsified distress calls. Elias spoke clearly, simply, explaining each piece step by step. He did not accuse with anger. He explained with calm. That frightened them more. The elders interrupted often, trying to confuse, distract, redirect. But humans were patient and thorough. Outside the chamber, something unexpected happened. Other species began to speak. A trade coalition demanded clarification about a war that had destroyed one of their partners. A border defense group questioned casualty numbers from a defensive action years ago. Even lower-ranked Carthel officers started asking questions. Soldiers compared notes. Veterans remembered orders that never made sense, missions that felt wrong. The elders felt control slipping. They made a final move. During a recess in the trial, Dominion loyalists attempted to arrest Elias by force. The doors burst open. Armed guards stormed in. Kareth moved instantly. She placed herself in front of Elias again, her blade drawn, her stance unyielding. "Stand down," she ordered. The guards hesitated. Across the chamber, other Carthel warriors shifted. Some raised weapons, others did not. Then one lowered his blade. Then another, a captain, stepped forward. "We were told to protect the Dominion," he said slowly, "not lies." The elders shouted commands, threats, promises, but authority only works when people believe in it. The guards withdrew. The trial resumed. This time the elders had no answers left. The final evidence was simple: a direct order, a recorded voice, a command to erase a civilian world to simplify future negotiations. Silence filled the chamber. The ruling caste had no defense. By ancient law, the verdict was clear. The High Command was stripped of authority, arrested, removed. The Dominion did not fall in fire or blood. It cracked under truth. In the days that followed, the galaxy changed its view of humanity, not because humans were powerful, but because they were relentless. Humans had not sent fleets. They had sent records, proof, memory. They had shown that no empire, no matter how old, could hide forever. Elias stood once more in the conclave chamber, this time not at the back. He stood beside Kareth as equals. "You never asked me if I agreed to this bond," he said quietly. Kareth looked at him, then gave a rare, small smile. "Among my people, a bond is not ownership, it is shared risk." He nodded. "Then I accept." The conclave recorded the moment. History would remember it not as a romance, but as a turning point. Humanity earned a new reputation that day. They were not conquerors, they were witnesses, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy did not settle after the fall of the High Command. It trembled. Power never vanished quietly. It only changed hands, and sometimes it fought back. The removal of the Carthel ruling caste left a wound that old allies and hidden enemies rushed to probe. Borders that had been frozen by fear began to shift. Old grudges resurfaced. Systems once controlled by force now stood uncertain, unsure who would protect them. Elias felt the change even before reports confirmed it. He stood in a quiet observation hall aboard the Conclave station, watching stars slide past the wide window. Ships moved constantly now, envoys, patrols, relief fleets. Too much movement, too much tension. Behind him, Kareth spoke with a group of Carthel officers. Their voices were low, serious. They were no longer warriors following commands without question. They were leaders learning to decide for themselves. That frightened many of them. Kareth joined Elias at the window. 3 border systems have requested protection, she said. They fear retaliation. From the old loyalists? Elias asked. From anyone, she replied. The vacuum invites ambition. Elias nodded. Humanity had seen this pattern before. Empires fell. Chaos followed. The question was always the same: who stepped in and why. The conclave called an emergency session within the cycle. This time the chamber felt different. Less rigid, less certain. Representatives spoke openly, sometimes angrily. Old alliances were questioned. New ones were suggested, and all eyes kept returning to the human delegation. Not with mockery, with caution. A representative from a neutral world stood. Humanity exposed corruption without firing a single shot, they said. That makes them unpredictable. Another replied, or trustworthy. The debate grew heated. Elias did not speak until asked. When the floor was finally given to him, the chamber quieted. We don't want control, Elias said simply. We don't want territory. We want records to stay open, laws to apply equally, and no one erased because it's convenient. Some scoffed. Others listened closely. Kareth watched him with something close to pride. Then the alarms sounded. Not station alarms, strategic alerts. A fleet had jumped into the outer system without authorization. Old Dominion warships, loyalists who had escaped arrest. Their message was short and clear: restore the High Command or burn the conclave. Fear spread fast. Some delegates demanded immediate surrender. Others called for evacuation. A few even accused humanity of causing this crisis. Elias felt the weight of it all settle on his shoulders. Kareth's voice cut through the noise. Running will only confirm their belief that fear still rules us. And fighting them, someone demanded. They outgun us. Kareth looked at Elias. He understood the question before it was asked. Humans did not have the biggest fleets. They did not have ancient weapons. But they had something the loyalists did not expect: preparation. Within minutes, human analysts connected to the station's network. They opened channels, not threats, not demands. They broadcast truth. They released every verified record of the High Command's crimes. Every falsified order, every hidden atrocity. They sent it not just to governments but to soldiers, crews, families, to the fleet now threatening the station. Inside those warships, screens lit up. Crew members watched evidence they had never been allowed to see. They recognized voices, orders they had followed without question, missions that had haunted them. Confusion spread. Then anger. The loyalist commanders shouted orders, demanded obedience. But obedience built on lies does not last. One ship powered down its weapons. Then another. A third turned away. The remaining vessels hesitated, then jumped out of the system. The threat ended without a single shot fired. The conclave chamber was silent. Someone finally spoke. You disarmed a fleet with information. Elias said quietly, people don't like being used. After that day, things moved faster. A new charter was drafted, not perfect, not ideal, but fairer than what came before. Oversight councils were formed. Records were made public by default, not exception. The Carthel restructured their society. Warriors were still warriors, but no longer tools of unseen rulers. Kareth refused any throne offered to her. "I will not rule," she said. "I will guard." She became something new, a bridge between old strength and new accountability. Elias returned to Earth briefly. Not as a hero, as a witness. He spoke before councils, universities, ordinary people. He told them the truth was powerful but dangerous, that it demanded courage not just to speak, but to maintain. When he returned to the conclave station, it felt almost like home. Kareth met him at the docking bay. "You came back," she said. "I told you," he replied. "Shared risk." Their bond was no longer questioned. It was recorded, accepted, understood not as romance but as alliance. Two beings from different worlds who chose to stand when silence would have been easier. The galaxy slowly adjusted. Conflicts still happened. They always would. But now accusations were met with investigation. Power was questioned. History was preserved. And humanity's name carried a quiet warning. They would not conquer you. They would remember. Elias stood once more at the great window, stars stretching endlessly ahead. Kareth stood beside him, her presence steady and unmovable. "Do you think it will last?" he asked. She considered the stars. "Nothing lasts forever," he nodded. "But some things last long enough to matter." She placed a hand over her chest in the old warrior salute. "Then let us make it matter." Beyond the glass, the galaxy turned, still dangerous, still vast but no longer blind. And somewhere in its endless dark, the truth waited, ready to be spoken again when needed. The galaxy learned a hard lesson after the Loyalist fleet fled. Truth could stop a war before it began, but it could not stop people from trying again. Months passed, trade routes reopened, borders stabilized. The conclave became quieter, more careful. On the surface, peace seemed real. But beneath it, resentment grew in places that had benefited from the old Dominion order. Elias sensed it long before the reports arrived. Patterns always came before explosions. He sat in a small operations room on the conclave station, surrounded by softly glowing screens. Streams of data flowed past his eyes, trade delays, communication gaps, sudden changes in civilian movement. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious. But together they formed a shape he did not like. "Someone is organizing," he said calmly. Kareth stood behind him, arms crossed. "Where?" "Everywhere," Elias replied. "And nowhere central. That's what worries me." The new threat did not wear banners or fly warships openly. It hid behind private fleets, mercenary groups, and local leaders who whispered that the galaxy had become weak. They called themselves the Restoration Coalition. They did not want the high command back exactly. They wanted something worse, power without oversight, violence without records. Their first strike was quiet. A civilian relay station near the outer rim went dark. No explosion. No distress call, just silence. Then another. Then a third. Trade routes collapsed. Medical shipments failed to arrive. Entire systems began to panic. The coalition sent its message only after fear had spread. The conclave must disband its oversight councils. Public records must be sealed. Military authority must return to strong leadership. Or the silence would continue. Some delegates argued. Some panicked. A few secretly agreed. Elias watched the debate unfold and felt something cold settle in his chest. "This is the same crime," he said. "Just slower," Kareth nodded, "and harder to strike." The conclave voted to delay action, to negotiate. That delay cost lives. When news arrived of a colony losing power to its life support grids, the chamber fell into stunned silence. The coalition had not attacked directly. They had simply removed access. Starvation, suffocation, death without a single shot. Kareth slammed her fist into the stone floor. "This ends now." "But we don't know where they're based," a delegate protested. Elias stood. "We don't need to." All eyes turned to him. "They want control through silence," he continued. "So we do the opposite. We flood the galaxy with light." Within hours, human teams coordinated with allied species. Emergency networks activated. Independent power relays were rerouted. Civilian engineers, humans among them, volunteered to risk dangerous jumps to restore cut systems. Elias broadcast a simple message across open channels. "We know what you're doing. It won't work." The coalition responded by attacking a convoy. This time, Kareth was ready. She led a mixed fleet, not just Carthel warships, but vessels crewed by many species. It was not a massive force. It was a symbol. They did not chase the coalition fleet. They followed the money. Supply lines collapsed under investigation. Mercenary contracts were exposed. Leaders who claimed innocence were confronted with evidence of coordination. Some surrendered. Others fled. One group did something desperate. They attempted to assassinate Elias. The attack came during a routine transfer between stations. A small ship slipped through traffic control and fired before anyone could react. Kareth saw it first. She moved without thought, without hesitation. The impact threw both of them across the deck. Alarms screamed. Security teams rushed in. Elias survived with minor injuries. Kareth did not. She lay still, armor cracked, her breath shallow. Medics worked frantically, their faces grim. Elias knelt beside her, fear crushing his chest. "Stay," he whispered. "You don't get to leave now." Her eyes opened slowly, focused, steady even then. "You were wrong," she said faintly. "About what?" "You planned to survive," she replied. "You just didn't admit it." She lived, barely. The attempt backfired. The galaxy reacted with fury, an attack on a conclave mediator, on the symbol of accountability, on the warrior who had stood between truth and power. Support for the Restoration Coalition collapsed overnight. Systems that had hesitated now spoke openly. The last hidden leaders were exposed by their own allies trying to escape blame. Within weeks, the coalition was gone. Not destroyed, discredited, that mattered more. Kareth recovered slowly. She refused ceremony, refused praise. When offered a permanent command position, she declined again. "I will not be a symbol carved in stone," she said. Symbols stop listening. Elias remained what he had always been, an analyst. But now when he spoke, the galaxy listened. The conclave established a final safeguard, an independent truth network, decentralized and protected by shared control. No single species owned it. No leader could erase it. Records would survive. Memory would persist. Years later, children across many worlds learned about the fall of the Dominion, the quiet war of information, and the human who spoke when he should have stayed silent. They learned about the warrior who stood in front of him and said no. Elias and Kareth stood together once more at the observation window, older now, marked by time rather than battle. "The galaxy is still dangerous," Elias said. Kareth nodded. "It always will be." "But it's watching itself now," he added. She placed her hand over her chest, then over his shoulder, an old salute shared and understood. "That is enough," she said. Beyond them, stars burned bright. And for the first time in a long time, the darkness between them did not feel so absolute.